So this summit for you guys as well is kind of, I've called it a self-rediscovery summit, because for me, when I kind of came across this understanding, it was like, I think mostly I was kind of expecting to kind of figure out who I was and who I wanted to be in human form. And then obviously I kind of came across the realization that actually, we're so much more than that as well. And so it's kind of twofold for me, the self-rediscovery summit. It's almost like we're playing with who we are in human form, and then underneath that, we're part of something so much greater. So that's what we're kind of exploring in this summit, and it's without kind of having to fix or change or do anything. So I know you guys will kind of resonate with that as well. And it's basically exploring how we can reconnect to our wisdom, to unravel a life that we love and find freedom from our suffering. So we've got lots of different speakers throughout the weeks, and they're kind of exploring different themes. I know it's kind of all the same. Once you kind of get to understand what this is all about, it doesn't really matter what subject you're applying it to. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But yeah, it's kind of my hope that people will begin to kind of understand that as they move through the sessions. And we're live most Fridays, and the replay's always in the member vault area. So if you miss it and you want to catch up, then they're all in there. And I also am jumping on live in the Self-Rediscovery community. So that's over on Facebook. So I'm doing kind of answering any questions in there, because usually if somebody's got a question, it's a question that a lot of people have. So always happy to jump on and explore like that. But today we have these lovely people with us. So it's Jenny and Dave, and I asked them on to come and kind of talk to us a little bit about love and relationships, because you guys have got a really lovely story to share. I'm sure we'll kind of dive into lots of different stuff as we move through it, I think. And I have kind of said, this doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship that we're just talking about. It can be all sorts of relationships that people suffer with, and kind of even the relationship with ourselves, because I think that's something that people kind of wanted when they signed up to this summit as well. They were kind of the idea of self-love and all of that sort of thing. And so like confidence and all of that. So yeah, I'm going to let you guys share your story, but I just wanted to introduce you kind of formally, because we are human. And if anybody does have any questions, by the way, do just drop them in. But yeah, I wanted you to share your story because it's kind of really insightful, and it was something that helped me along my journey. But yeah, you guys basically share an understanding about the three principles, which is something that I'll again get you to explore. But you've kind of worked internationally, helping people from all walks of life. So from school children to prison inmates, from African refugees to earthquake survivors in Nepal, groups in America. So you've kind of helped people from all over to, your website says, to achieve sustainable life-changing growth through profound, deep and lasting kind of insights and deep realization brought by simple conversations. Sorry?
It's our website.
Yeah, that's what it says. Yeah, and through simple conversations. So your simple solution offers a way to live in the world as it is, with far less mental suffering and struggle.
Oh, we were feeling optimistic that day.
A life with more peace, ease and joy, where we realise our innate resilience and creativity. So that's what you've got to live up to in this conversation. Wow. And again, as I like to point to, this is kind of all without kind of a single self-help tool or technique, I guess. It's just about seeing something different. So yeah, I am a big believer in the power of kind of story sharing. So I just thought you guys could start by sharing a little bit about your story so far, maybe with relationships kind of interwoven into that. And yeah, if you would like to.
First.
Ladies first. I'll go first. No, you go first. We'll fight about it later once we're off camera. Talk too much.
I think a bit like you said earlier, it's the relationship with ourselves is the one that I think the three principles has helped me see deeper. It's shed light on this idea of who I think I am, what I think I am. And I think when you asked us to speak about relationships, I felt myself go, oh, I'm not sure, because as many people within the community know, I went through a very public, in lots of ways, separation from Rudy, and we've openly shared our story around that. And in a way that that really helped me see how much I had attached my identity, my worth, to an idea of who I was. This person who shared the 3 principles. They were in a relationship, married. You know, they'd never have an affair. They did this.
Excuse me.
I had a home. I had security, and so much of my worth was tied into these things in the world. And it was almost like, I guess for me, almost like a fall from grace, because I'd held myself to a very high standard as a human being, and I'd tied in lots of belief of what the principles meant about how you should be in a relationship with another person. And I think that experience of separating from Rudy, having lots of very public opinion online, Facebook messages, losing some friends, gaining some incredible friends, like some of the friendships that I've gained through this. But I think one of the things that really strikes me is that through that crumbling and through that kind of realizing I wasn't any of the things I thought I was, something else has emerged. And to me, it feels much more authentic and fluid, and it's allowed my relationship in a romantic way to just be honest. It's allowed my friendships and my relationship with my family to be honest. And I think it was this idea of me trying to be someone, trying to be perfect, and I hadn't realized that they were still concepts, and that the principles really sheds light on how all experience is created, how we are in the world is created from this incredible power that we try and put language to. And I'm getting more and more in awe of that stuff, and less interested in the personal, in who I think I am and what I think I should be and
where you should be.
And it's been a real shift from looking at my thinking and how I'm doing and what insights I've had and that kind of thing, which is cool. Like, it's cool to see that, to what is this deeper intelligence? This deeper intelligence in life that knows how to beat our heart and grow the trees, and what is it that's the same? What is it that connects us? Which is how then I've managed to have absolute privilege of sharing this across the world with different populations, seeing what's the same, and seeing that connection and love are what's left when judgment, belief falls away. And I think that's the kind of relationships that I feel blessed to have in my life now. They're not relationships based on me being a character that needs people to like me and all those kind of things. It's based on when all of that falls away, there's connection, there's love, there's same.
That's beautiful. And just, I guess, for the people at home who maybe don't know what the 3 principles are, I wonder if you can just dive into that a little bit, because some of my audience, I share the principles, but I don't necessarily talk about what they are. And you've kind of pointed to it there with the connection and the kind of thinking as well. But I just wondered if you could shed a little bit of light on that for somebody who might not understand what we're talking about.
I guess the way that I see it now is a description of the undescribable. So it's almost a way of starting to make sense and understand experience or reality here on Earth. And it's really, really practical. And I think for me, my first shift, my first insight was starting to realize that the experience that I lived in came from within. Came from thought. It didn't come from my past or my personality or any of the things I thought in the world that created my life. And it's almost like a pointer back inside. And I remember hearing about consciousness, this power of consciousness, this awareness. And I was like, I'd never thought about these things before. So it was bringing together thought and consciousness to create a reality.
Mm.
And then this principle of mind being this divine intelligence that lives us, that lives the universe, lives everything. And for a long time, they were three separate things in my mind.
Mm.
But now I see them more as this one force that creates life as we see it.
Mm.
And I was talking to someone today, and I just said, on a practical level, you really start to see how, wow, I can totally freak out about public speaking when I'm laying in my bed at home. Like, is it public speaking that makes me feel?
Mm.
And that's incredible to start to explore and see, and realize that the entirety of our experience is coming from within.
Yeah.
And then to know that we're connected to a knowledge and an intelligence far greater than anything I personally know or think.
Mm.
That to me was one of the things that settled me down the most. It was almost like it's not on me anymore to try and do this living stuff. There is actually something there, something present that's always been there, and I'd kind of had a sense of before, but not wanted to believe it, or I'd questioned it. So that's kind of how I am seeing it these days. I don't know if you'd add anything to that.
No, I like that.
Just what she said. Yeah.
I think it's words,
Yeah.
and for the individual who starts to see past the words and realize the truth, for example, CBD turmeric drink, you know, the word, the noise, everybody goes, oh, CBD turmeric drink, okay. Most people probably don't have a clue what the hell that is. Let's look for something else. It's a cup. You know, you say the word cup, people go, yeah, I know what you mean, you know, but it's not the object. It's not the matter. It's not the energy turned to manifest into a form. You know, so it can be really easy to get caught up in the intellect. But for those that get to hear past the intellect and into what these, and realize that everything is born of a consciousness state that is deeply intelligent, and we get to think a reality into being, it changes people's lives. It connects them spiritually. Their relationship to life changes, and in that, so does the relationship to everything. Relationship to their thinking, relationship to feelings, relationship to scenarios in the world, relationships to different cultures, relationships close to you, relationships to yourself. I was just thinking just then as Jen was talking, it's like when you touch on the subject of relationship, you know, everything is a relationship. Everything in this existence is a relationship.
Yeah.
But it's born of a singular place. Relationship suggests two.
Yeah.
So people start to see past that it's like you touch on something that it will change your life. It will absolutely change your life.
I guess, how does that play out in relationships? Because in practical relationships, because to me, what you're pointing to there is like, we think we're separate, and that's kind of where conflict can come in.
Yeah. So to start to gain a sense of what is this? Where does separation appear to take place? You know, when you were talking, I was thinking about, forgive me if you heard the story, but when we did a first day in working in a charity in a township in Cape Town, a township called Muflowini, which is a suburb of Kailicha, which is an exceptionally violent place. And Jenny and I went, and we got to do this 3-day talk with these people, and we had a room full of black people, and one lady who described herself as coloured, Cape coloured. I've been told off for calling her that, but that's how she described herself.
Yeah.
So I do with the disrespect of calling her something that she didn't describe herself as. And Jenny and I at the front, and I remember day one, nobody spoke. Absolutely nobody spoke, apart from this Susan, who was the Cape coloured lady. And at the end, she came up to us and said, "Did you notice I was the only person who spoke?" We were like, "Yeah, it was quite obvious. There was like 14 other people and just you. The rest of them just looked like they wanted to either kill us or get out. And I remember she said, they don't trust you. Why would they trust you? She said, you're white. The white people who have come from Europe have done terrible things to this country and its people. She said, but us coloured people, we had a different relationship to the white people. We were more favoured. So we got more perks, more benefits. The black people, they don't trust you. If you want them to open up and you want them to hear your message, you have to get them to trust you. And I remember, I live in the Lake District. It's not the most multicultural place on the planet. And I remember thinking to myself, what the hell are we going to do with this? And on the way drive back in the next morning to sit back down with these people, I remember saying, Jen, what the hell are we going to do? And I just said, we're just going to hit it head on. Let's hit this head on. So I sat down at the front of the class. Jen was there, sat next to me, and all these people came. Every single one of them came back, God bless them. And I remember just saying to them, there's a big white elephant in this room, and it's Jenny and I. So tell us what you see in us as white people. And his fingers just went up like this. Like, you're white people! What freaking hell? It just completely kind of hit us with this tsunami of, you are good people. You have easy lives. You're rich. You don't do drugs. You don't drink. You don't have drink problems. You don't have drug problems. You don't have problems in life. You don't go to prison. You don't do this. You don't do that. And once that tirade kind of calmed down, I just sat there and said, well, I found that really fascinating that that's honestly what you see in Jenny and I. I said, because I have done every single one of those things that you say white people don't do, apart from be rich. And they were like, what? So, drugs? Yeah, I've had problems with drugs, drink. Yeah, I've been to prison. I haven't had an easy life. I had a hard life a lot of the time. And it was interesting. You get to see the barrier in relationships, and it is nothing but this. It's beliefs.
Yeah.
It's thoughts that we hold on to and we cherish, and whether we're aware of it or not. And the moment this took place, this day took place, we hit this square on. We didn't fanny around with it. We just hit it straight on, and these people opened up. They could see it's not a black and white thing. It's a human thing. It's a life thing. And after the 3 days, these people, I honest to God, I'm tingling as I think about them now. Like the love that was expressed after those 3 days. They are still people who I feel so fortunate to have met. The connection that was made in that 3 days. They were talking to us. They took us out for a meal in the middle of Kailicha. It has been the murder capital of the world, and they protected us. They kept us safe. You know, and they deeply, deeply loved us, and we deeply, deeply loved them. And the only thing that was stood in our way was beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a two-way thing. You know, Jen and I approached that with a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
And we got our ego shown to our face as well. So you start to wake up to that fact that the only thing that stands in the way of a relationship between people, between nationalities, between religions, between families, between people we meet on the street, between ourselves spiritually, and is thought. And this is why Sid spoke about thought. He said, you know, this really is a missing link that everybody's overlooking. If you really see the power of thought, you'll find God. You'll find the creative force of the reality that you encounter as your day-to-day life. As you think, so the world appears.
Because we think that everything that we think is true and real.
That's right.
And when you can see past that you allow what's really there to bubble up, I guess. That's what I'm hearing.
You start to see it's all an illusion. And it goes from, in the West, we know our relationship to science is very deep. It's very much at the expense of the spirit. You know, spirituality has been completely, it's fluffed up, it's bullshit, it's this, it's that, and it's nothing to do with science. Get that out of here. I talk about hard and fast fact. But all science is a study of source, manifest. So all science is a study of spirit.
Yeah.
And this to me was where my relationship to life got beautiful, when I woke up and realized this is all an illusion. If my reality was true, everybody would see the world the way I did. Thank God they don't. But you see, everybody is literally just wandering around in their own illusion of self-importance, of self-righteousness.
Yeah. I remember when I first kind of came across this, I would get really cross because I suddenly realized it's like, it's me, it's not the other person. I really wanted it to be the other person. So yeah, I would get quite annoyed. But I think for some people maybe who haven't quite understood that or felt that, when they're in a relationship and maybe it's with their partner or someone that they're kind of really like kind of arguing with, how does that kind of play out? If they don't quite get it, it's like, how do they see like the separate realities, I guess?
I think in lots of ways, if you have a conversation or an argument with someone and you blame them for how you feel, that comes with a certain type of feeling, and you'll react and be a certain type of way. And I think with understanding, it's not that you're going to let people walk all over you. It's not that you're always going to like other people's behavior, but I think you can come at it in a different way. So it seems there's more options. Whereas before it'd just be, you often hear couples who've been together years, they say they've had pretty much the same argument over and over and over again. Like throughout it's almost like those early issues and things that they argued about, they will continue to argue about, and they can kind of laugh at it in one moment and then want to tear each other's hair out the next moment.
Yeah. But
you start to see that when we start to take responsibility for our own experience, when we start to really see that, you know, another person does not have the ability to put a feeling in you. It's impossible, however much it looks like it. And if I'm totally honest, daily basis, I get caught up in that misunderstanding.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm brought back to earth, I'm brought back to reality so much quicker than I ever used to be. And even in the midst of things, there's like this little kind of voice or sense there.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that before coming across this understanding, I would have said was there, but I didn't know to trust it. Whereas I've started to see that the logic of this, the simplicity of this, is something that's so easy to overlook. Because the reality being created for us, what we think we feel, what we think creates our reality. That's no small thing. And it's as much when I sit on a beach looking at a sunset and get lost in the beauty of it, it feels like the beach and the sunset is creating this incredible feling for me. I always remember the time when all you could see was the microplastics and the pollution.
Yeah.
So we often talk about, you know, the illusion of the other person annoying us and things like that, but it's all of it. All of it's created from within us. Our entire experience is an inside job, which is how, you know, being out in South Africa and working in the townships, I got to see my own ego. Like I was like, wow, living here under the pressures you are under, the kind of relationships going on in those communities at this time, it's almost like, oh, you're allowed to be really upset, you're allowed to be depressed, you're allowed to be angry. And then I'd work with other people who seemed externally to have everything, and they've kind of got anxiety about someone not being nice to them. And I remember being in South Africa and just being like, for goodness sake, pull yourself together. And then realizing it about me. You know, we say that there is nothing outside that can create a feeling for us. But then I'll look out into the world and see people living in certain situations thinking, how on earth could you be happy? And then I get faced with the most beautiful, happy, buoyant, resilient human beings I've ever met. And we kind of know that to be true. It's something that's thrown around so often. You know, money doesn't buy happiness. All of those kind of things. But it's recognizing the entire experience we live in comes from within. Which is how then someone, like I've often said to you, God, sometimes I'll get so lost in my head. We've not even had a conversation. We don't even need to be in the same house. I can get angry and cross and upset about something, and it almost seems like there's an enemy there.
Yeah.
And then one thought later, you know, the most amazing person in the world.
Yeah.
I can bring to mind something from 2 years ago, 10 years ago, and get annoyed about it now. The other person doesn't, you start to see that the other person doesn't even need to be present for you to experience that feeling. You start to see the evidence for the truth of something.
Yeah.
It has to be inside. If the other person doesn't even need to be in the room for you to have those experiences and feelings, where does it come from?
Yeah, and that's something that I realized actually in my own kind of journey with relationships, is when someone that I loved had gone, and I realized I still loved them, so love was still there, and even though they weren't there physically, the love still existed. And then I realized, oh well, it can't come from them because it's coming from me, because they're not even here. And that's when you kind of realize that all of it, even in the bad stuff as well, you're thinking about how annoyed you are with someone. It's like, oh no, that's for me as well. Yeah. What else was I going to ask there? I guess it's kind of people in the day-to-day challenges when they're suffering. It can seem a bit difficult to understand that. So I don't know if you've got an example of that. I think I remember ages ago you telling me something about an argument with keys. That was kind of like a day-to-day thing where you'd argued over who'd forgotten or lost the keys or something. There might be another one.
Plenty. I do think, you know, I think everybody's trying to get away from trying to escape an experience. I'm just dropping my mate off, one of my best mates, at a rehab centre. He's taken a lot of drugs over the years. He's trying to escape an experience. You know, and we become so terrified of experiences, as though somehow they have a power to define us. They are us, to destroy us. And before you know it, you're terrified. People are terrified of life. They're dissatisfied with who they are. They have very little acceptance and love, and they're wanting to be somewhere else. And then, on one hand, that can be a really beautiful thing, because it opens up the mind to explore new things. On one hand. On the other hand, when an individual wakes up and finds what everybody's truly looking for, which is peace of mind and love, connection, acceptance, they will find that they are perfect as they are. They always have been. And so it's like in that comes an acceptance for our frailties, if you want to call them frailties. You know, we're human beings. We treat humanity treats itself like there's a blueprint, like there's a normal. You know, psychology, I was diagnosed with all kinds of things when I was in the past, and I was always pitched against a norm oh, you're a bit high in this, bit low in that, blah, blah, blah. As though there was some form of normal. Are you still there?
Mm.
You froze a little bit. And it's like we treat human beings as though there is a right way to be and a wrong way to be. I remember speaking to a psychiatrist once when not long after I came across the principles and I woke up, it was like I started helping people, and I started a community group, and I had people come with PTSD, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, OCD, and in this small group, and they were telling me all about their diagnosis, and I knew nothing about diagnosis. So I rang up a psychiatrist and I just explained the situation, and I said, I just want to ask you a few questions. And he was very accommodating, he was very kind. And I just asked him two really crap questions to begin with, which I couldn't quite formulate the question, but in the end I asked him, I said, you obviously have a line for mental illness. Where is psychiatry's line for mental health? And he went really quiet, and then he came back with these words. He said, Dave, it seems to me like my industry owes everybody a massive apology, because we never work with mental health. We only ever work with mental illness. And so I asked him, I said, okay, well, at what point would you ever diagnose somebody as being mentally healthy? And he said, we wouldn't. And I can see now why the psychology's relationship, the mainstream Western psychology, as it sits in this very present moment, is one built from everybody is broken. They just don't know it yet. We haven't told them yet. Right? And we came across that this week, didn't we, talking to a counsellor, where he said, you know, it's fascinating. I had no idea I was damaged until I started doing this job. Like, okay. He said, you know, working with these lads, and, you know, you get to hear all the stories, and you get to see that they're so broken within. And then I started to explore myself and my past, and I realized I'm broken too. And I said to this man, I said, do you truly believe that? When you meet people, do you truly see broken? And he said, yes. And I wasn't in a position to sit down and have a conversation with him. So we just carried on the conversation. But it hit me there. I was like, poof. You are somebody trying to help people, and your relationship to mental health is built on the idea that somehow this universe creates things that are broken. Look at the universe. Look at the
And I think that's interesting when we're talking about self-love, because it's almost the idea that we're not lovable, we're not already love. So if we hold a belief that we need to work on self-love, it's because we're not seeing that, right?
Yeah, it's born of fear.
I think you see it when you look at young kids, really young. Like, I don't think any of this is on their mind. Do I love myself? Do I not?
Yeah.
Am I this? Am I that? Am I good at this? Am I not? And I think you see how, I don't know, babies are just born buoyant, and they have needs, and they get upset, and they get cross, and they're in and out of experience without so much thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then we create a character and an idea of what's wrong with us, and this achievement, this goal setting, this movement towards better. And we never take stock of what we already are. Incredible being creating experience and reality. Like we never really get to see that. And I think the self-help movement, I can see it's like it's trying to be helpful. It's trying to help people.
But it's feeding ego.
Yeah, it's like it's making us more identified with our character and trying to make that look nicer.
Well, it's working on the understanding that we need helping also.
Yeah, and it's, what are we trying to polish? It's polishing turds. That's what it is. It's like you can't polish a turd. No, you're absolutely right. You can't. Like, that's what it's trying to do. And then we often say to people, you know, like, people come and do intensives with us or work with us, and we're like, how long have you been trying to fix yourself for? Years. How's it going? Not very well. Have you ever considered why? Have you ever considered you're trying to fix something that isn't broken? You know, it's like, have a look at that. What if you're not actually broken? What if all this time you've been trying to fix something that was never needed fixing? It just needed understanding.
Yeah.
It's different come from.
And it is, it's seeing that differently, isn't it? It's that understanding that helps you just see it, or not even intellectually, just helps you get a sense for it.
Yeah. I was thinking of the story I think you're talking about the keys. I think it might be the one your mum told at group, where we're all going off on holiday and we'd lost the keys.
Yeah.
And like, I was convinced that I remembered the last time that these keys had been used was by you. So in my mind, I was like, well, and that's the only place that I looked is where you could have put them, because you were the one that had lost them. And your mum and dad had kind of been helping. And then eventually the thought popped in, oh yeah, but then you took them and you did that with them, and then you put them in your coat pocket, a coat that you never normally wear. And it was like, you can see, if you're so fixed in your belief that the other person lost the keys, you don't allow your mind to open to other possibilities. Because I was so fixed to my story, but I remember that you had them and then that happened.
This is true, this is real.
Yeah. And then you're just going over and over it, and it's all his fault, and how did it
and then I didn't
you go
open
back to
up
the
then,
same places to
over
look
and over
and over again. No, they're not there, but you're going to go back and have another look.
I thought it was such a cool metaphor for what we then do in life. Like, we know that studying our character, studying our past, really doesn't get us anywhere. If the answers were there, we would have found them. But we don't realise that that's the case, so we continue to look there. And like you said, you'd go back to the same dresser and look again, no, they're still not there. And then go back again, no, they're still not there.
I'm sure they're there.
They're just going to manifest.
Yeah.
And it's like this understanding the principles is taking us from looking where things aren't to where things are. Where do answers come from? Well, answers come from new thought, insight, which is built into us, which is how we have gone in the last 100 years from all the things that we've created in terms of technology and all of those kind of things. They didn't exist, and then someone had the idea, the fresh, brand new idea to create. And it's like that kind of intelligence is what we're made from. But we're so fixed in looking how we've always looked. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Einstein, wasn't it?
I don't know who said it.
It was Einstein's definition.
But you start to see with this that it wasn't that. And one of the things your mum observed is, apparently in your household, that would have been a massive thing. An all holiday it would have been, and it held us up by an hour and a half, and that it would have been a huge thing. But instead, everyone helped look for the keys. Eventually they were found. We went on holiday. It wasn't a big deal. And I think those kind of things, which can seem like small things, like you often say, over a lifetime, the amount of times that you're kind of almost into an argument and then you realise and you let it go. Like, you don't realise how just those small things create a much easier life.
Yeah.
My dad always used to say to me, do you want to be kind or do you want to be right? And I always think, I want to be right.
I love that, yeah.
And I used to just laugh at it. But now it's like, I've got less self-importance. I'm less self-obsessed. I don't have to defend myself as much as I used to.
That's what all suffering's created from, is chronic self-obsession. And I mean that with the greatest of respect. I've experienced it.
Yeah.
Experience it.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, this is it, you know. Being human comes with its frailties. You know, and I think when we accept that, they get fewer and fewer. Just simply accepting, you know, sometimes I'm going to fuck up. Sometimes I'm going to swear on a webinar when perhaps I. And sometimes we're going to really mess up. You know, and we're allowed.
Yeah.
We're allowed. You know, I'm so eternally thankful for my greatest mistakes. Yeah. I often look at my life, and if I was to put it on a weighing scale, I often say this. I remember. Actually, it was the lady who introduced me to the principal, Sue Huginson, beautiful friend of mine, one of my greatest friends. Saved my life. she said, I remember we had not long kind of had my experience of awakening through this, and then we sat down and we just used to just bounce off each other at this point. She was sat silent, and she just looked at me and she went, would you change anything in your life, Dave? It wasn't like a therapy question. It was just a question. Dave, would you change anything in your life? I remember thinking there for a moment, thinking I've been to prison, hammered drugs, I've had affairs, my marriage has split up, my family dropped to pieces, all kinds of stuff of violence, aggression, horribleness, massive depression. And I remember sitting there going, no. Should you won't change anything? I said, no, I wouldn't actually. So no, I wouldn't. I said, actually, no, I'm quite grateful for it. She said, why are you grateful for it? I said, because I've learned so much about life through the hard times. And she just sat back in a chair. The room just went quiet again. And then I remember just thinking to myself, no, I would change one thing. So she went, all right, what's that? I said, I'd take away everybody else's pain that I caused along the way. She just looked at me and went, that's selfish of you. And it you know, everybody's always trying to avoid the hardships in life, the hard feelings, the hard times. In my opinion, they're not fun. But in the long run, there are no greater gifts. I've got a mate we just dropped off at the recovery centre. I picked him up from the police station after he'd gone on a massive bender and done some stupid stuff. Picked him up from the police station and we sat down. He was crying, he was bawling his eyes out, he was coming down, and I said, you won't see this now. Like, my life's ruined, I've ruined my life. And I said, you won't see this now, but this is one of the greatest gifts you're ever going to get. I don't know that because it's a frigging hard time. You know, the thing everybody's trying to avoid is hardship, and to me, my relationship to the hard times in life has totally changed. You know, times when we go into these, we're human beings and we interact with one another. You know, everybody sees different realities. We live in a very dynamic lump of rock in the middle of this very dynamic, amazing thing we call the universe. And it throws up its challenges. Life is challenges. That's what life is. It can't hurt us, though. We can cope with absolutely anything. And how can you ever know that unless you actually go through the hard times? How can you know you are truly unbreakable unless you get bent or the illusion of being bent? You know, so everybody's trying to avoid, and I spent my life trying to avoid the hard times till the point where life doesn't work like that. Life will teach you stuff, and then you get to learn, and from that learning you get to grow, and in that growth you get to find gratitude for it. You get to find the very thing you were looking for in the first place. You get to find the love and acceptance and for life itself. Wow, this is some amazing stuff. I can't believe I got through that hard time. You know, wow, I can cope with that. Wow, I'm unbreakable. You start to wake up to this and you start to realize you're not what you think you are.
Yeah.
So your relationship to yourself changes through this. And I don't know anybody who has been to hell who doesn't come out of hell and then go, I found how to find heaven. I found the route to heaven. And it's not that people have to go through hell to find heaven.
No.
But when people do find themselves on that road, when they, you know, it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but there is, in the long run, there is no greater gift in my life that I've ever been handed than tough times. And so my relationship to my reality, my experiences has totally changed. Part of me, there's this little bit of excitement going, what's at the end of this? What am I going to get? There's always something. Once you get eyes for learning, you learn.
And in seeing that our experience is kind of created through thinking helps us to kind of navigate those
Absolutely.
challenges as well. But I think one of the things that a lot of people I come across get stuck with is that idea that, yeah, they can see like our thoughts are, you know, our thoughts and they're just thoughts, but they kind of want to shift them and change them. And so what you kind of said there is like, actually we could just accept them and know that we can deal with whatever comes up.
It is a thing that we come up against an awful lot of people. When we talk about thought, we're not talking about individual expressions of consciousness, individual images or words or sentences. We're talking about a force of pure creation that creates reality within our being that looks like it's an external event. So it is a principle. And when we talk about thought, we're talking about an infinite force, not a potential within an infinite. This thinking, that thought, this thought, that thought. You know, we can analyze thinking till we're blue in the face. I'm 40 years old, and if it's true, I have between 160 and 160,000 or something thoughts a day. Which thoughts am I?
Which ones do you want to cling on to? Yeah,
which ones am I going to cling on to? Which ones am I going to analyze? You know, you realize it's a dog chasing its tail. It never gets anywhere because we're forever trying to change something that has immediately changed anyway. The moment we think something, it's immediately in the past. You can't change the past.
And the moment that we're trying to change it is we've kind of focused in on it, and that's why it's becoming kind of, by trying to change it, it's the focus.
This is it. But when people wake up to the power of thought and realize what it does, when they realize it's always a neutral thing, is thought. Thought is just simply the force of creation. No, it is simply that. There is nothing to fear in it. There is nothing to fear in thought. It's not to say that we won't experience fear. Fear is created via thought, but when you wake up to it, you realize all the thoughts and experiences that we've been so afraid of are simply this same energy creating. You know, I often describe it as the waves on the water. Each wave looks like a different entity, a separate event, made of, you know, we call them waves, we give them a different name. And some waves are big and some waves are small, and each thought is like a wave. You know, that it's like our consciousness focuses in on one potential, only for that potential to disappear back in again, to be replaced by new. It's just what it does. Like a lake cannot not wave, the mind cannot not think, consciousness cannot not think. So, but we become more afraid of certain waves over other waves.
Yeah,
I think that wave over there has more solidity and validity to it than the next wave. But all thought is created of the same water. All thoughts are simply like waves of a water. They're all exactly the same thing. They're as neutral as water.
Yeah. One of the things that I got kind of when I saw that, but I began then to kind of think, well, okay, well, how do I make decisions now? Like which thought matters and which one doesn't? And I think when I remember speaking to you, Jenny, when I was going through my own divorce and kind of like, well, I need to make a decision, you know, do I leave? Do I stay? Which thought makes sense? Like, and you said, there's no decision to be made, but a decision will be made. And I liked that. Can you kind of explain, I guess, a bit more about what that means? It's like...
Well, it's funny because that was something, I was in a really similar position as you were at that time when I was with Terry Rubenstein. And I remember I felt so much pressure to know what to do. I felt so much pressure to make the right decision, do it right. I wanted to do this right. And she said to me, she just sat and listened, and then she said, you don't have to make a decision, but a decision will be made. And I think it was one of the things that it was almost like I hadn't realized I've been holding my breath, and it was amazing how life unfolded. And even when we're in indecision, life's still happening. We're still living. We're still here. And I think I took the pressure off. Knowing that it's all thought, it doesn't mean we then lose our sense or we do nothing. We still live and we act and we move. And Sydney Banks, the man who uncovered this, often spoke about raise your level of conscious state. And he said that, and he'd talk about it in very different ways, but with understanding, with a different level of consciousness, with more awareness, however we want to describe it, we do different. And I think I've realized that there's certain times where I really need to think about something and I just can't keep my mind on it. And there's other times when I really don't want to think about something and I can't stop thinking about it. So we don't have that kind of level of control, but I feel like that's just what's happening. And it's always thrown around and it's on fridge magnets, but it is what it is kind of thing. Yeah. Makes more and more sense. Like, well, I've sat and meditated before, and all I needed to do was count back from 10 to 1. When I used to go to the Buddhist center, every time your mind wanders, you have to go back to 10 and start again. I never made it past like 7. Like, you realize, like, your mind is like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh no, I'm not supposed to be thinking that. And you just our minds. But very naturally, when we don't try and control it, we don't try and change the past, we don't try and unthink something we've already thought, there is a natural quietening of our mind. When we stop thinking there's something wrong, or there's something that needs to change, or we need to be better, or there is a natural reordering, because you're coming back to what is true, what is constant, what is it that lives us, what is it creating. And when you're less bought into this idea that there's an outside world that you're a victim to, or there's something outside that creates your feeling, that in itself takes thinking off your mind. And that quietening happens. We're just going to let Rusty in.
Sorry.
My poor parents have been babysitting him, and I've heard him barking nearly continuously for the last hour. And I think they're probably...
Hi, Rusty.
I often say he is the best gauge of my mood, because if Rusty starts looking annoying to me, I know it's time to look inside. Because most of the time he can do no wrong. Like, he fights people. He goes to the toilet in the house sometimes, and generally I make excuses for him, and he's the cutest thing. If I'm finding him irritating, I'm like, right, look inside, there's something going on within you. And I think that's one of the things you start to realize, like, how you see people, how you see the world is a reflection of your mind. And I think that's something that has been really helpful, because before this understanding, my state of mind, my feeling state, to me meant that there was something outside that was wrong if I had a horrible feeling. And I basically navigated my life and avoided things and tried to be near certain people so that I could feel okay. And that's really hard, because we, as you were saying, a very dynamic lump of rock.
Yeah. When
you start to realize that your peace of mind is not dependent, you don't have to navigate away from certain people or things. You start to realize that it exists within you at any moment. And I think that's something that we're all looking outside. We're all looking for someone to fix us. We're all looking for someone to make us feel whole. We're all looking for something to give us a feeling. When we stop looking for that, we realize we've already got everything that we need. And I feel like the training that I did, I always described it as being introduced to my best teacher, my best guide, my best friend, and it was within. And then when I work with people and talk to people, I don't see broken. I see absolute perfection. Like, oh wow, like, you think about that all the time, and that's how you feel. Yeah, like, that tallies up. Yeah,
that's not a broken system.
That's working beautifully, but you don't understand what it means. So clear up that misunderstanding. It doesn't mean you're going to then have, you're going to skip off and never feel anything that you don't like again. But with understanding, it's very, very different. And I think that's the thing that shifted. You stop feeling like a victim, and you recognize you're up against your own mind.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of making sense of our thinking and how our mind works, and seeing that if we're kind of feeling off. There's something going on with our mind rather than anything else. And underneath all of that is this wisdom that if we just kind of quiet, it'll kind of sort itself out.
Well, it just lives us anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
You know, it can be really easy to kind of separate wisdom from all of this stuff. No, we're made of it. Everything's made of wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, what is the wisest thing? It's the energy that creates a universe. Well, we are that.
Yeah.
It's not that we need to find it. It's just what everything is. Everything's made of it. It just so happens that when the intellect can't see it. The intellect will never see it because it's the creator. When the intellect is pure creation, it's after the fact, it's manifest. It's taken form. And so this is why, again, we're back to see beyond the word, see beyond, in Buddhism and Hinduism, they say see beyond the ego.
Yeah.
If you want to find truth, you've got to see beyond the ego. The ego being the ball of memories and thoughts that we carry around with ourselves that we assume to be true and real and who we are. Our identity, it's what we're so attached to, what was the thing we think keeps us safe. I used to have a friend who, she said, but I've got this suit of armor, but it keeps me safe. I said, but do you not see it's got sweaty and heavy now? It suited you at that time when you really felt like you needed it, but you carry that suit of armor around with you now years later and it's no longer serving you. It's just heavy. Those beliefs and the thinking you need to be a certain way. No, it's just heaviness. It's just their thoughts. You know, that's what they're just memories. But what was I talking about? Ask another question. Sorry, look, might come. I wanted to just finish off what I said about Ed actually, and I said to him, you know, there's a silver lining in this. And 4 days later into this,
we had him under house arrest.
We had him so he came to live with us, and he was laughing his head off. We had our community group, and he came to community group, and he had a massive insight. He was like, "Wow!" He said, "This is amazing." He said, "Look," he said, "this is just amazing." He said, "Life," and he was chatting about all his insight he's had, and he's like, "Wow, life's just beautiful. I'm clear-headed. I haven't taken cocaine. I haven't taken weed. I haven't taken prescription drugs." He said, "I haven't been drinking." He said, "I'm clear-headed." I said, "Do you remember that time 4 days ago when I picked you up from the police station? Your world had ended." You know, it's like we think that the world ends. It doesn't end. The world isn't even what we think it is. We think the world's a material thing. It's not. It's an energy thing. Science totally points to this now, and so does the Bible. You know, humanity needs to do some waking up, because when we do see this, we will embrace it. We'll embrace ourselves, and we will see the perfection in life. We will see the perfection of even the suffering. And we'll find the acceptance, because the moment we find acceptance, I once heard a Buddhist man speaking about acceptance at my local Buddhist spot, and he said acceptance is the greatest gift. The moment you find acceptance, you find healing.
Yeah, I love that. And that's why there's nothing to do. There's nothing to fix or change. It's just, like you say, it is what is, and we're just being lived.
That's what's so cool about having Dave's friend with us, because it's like his life still had all of those things going on. Potential relationship breakdown, potential charges from police. All this, we're still trying to take him to a rehab because he totally knows he needs some support to stop taking substances, even though he's had huge insight about life. But that night, he was talking and he'd seen so much. He looked so alive with it all. He then Rusty, our little Jack Russell, scratting around trying to get food, got his head stuck in a bag of vegan burgers, I think it was. And we were just crying with laughter, like the three of us just sat there crying with laughter. And then Rusty was like walking into the wall and trying to eat the food.
Don't judge us.
And
it was very funny.
We were just sat there, and he just said, wow, like in the midst of everything 4 days before, he could not envision sat on a sofa, laughing, full of insight and hope. That would not have been a potential for him in that moment, because his world was falling apart to him in that moment.
Yeah.
And the beauty was, like, you didn't go down with him, you just sat there and listened. And you see how easy it has been for us with our relationships. If you see someone and it looks like their world's falling apart, we totally buy into their story and we go down with them. And I feel like with this, you get to see, wow, someone's got a lot of thinking going on.
Yeah.
You know that the mind will quieten down.
Yeah.
People do get gifted new thought. We have got insight built into us. And I think the more you see that, and I always say one of the greatest gifts of my first training was that my first teacher, Dr. Roger Mills, he saw health within people. He saw pure mental health within people. And that's what he spoke to. Regardless of what he's presented, regardless of behaviour or any of those things, he spoke to that pure mental health. He knew it existed. And I think that was something that, beyond all the words, I couldn't have told you what was spoken about in those 3 days. But his absolute knowing that I was all right and that everyone else in the room was okay was what I think shifted something in me, because I woke up, wow, I'm all right. I'm all right. And I think you start to realise that everyone's all right. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
And then when you speak to people and you meet people, that's what you see. Whereas before, I used to see damaged human beings. I was broken. Everyone was broken. Well, they don't realise it. If they're being happy, they're just really shallow and they haven't looked enough into their past. There must be something terribly wrong with them. I've had all this thinking about self-exploration and depression and being some kind of deep human being. And somebody that's kind of light and buoyant and happy must somehow not have realised how terrible things really are. And that's how I lived. And it's like that shift of focus to, wow, we're amazing. Life's amazing. But I never knew to look for that. I always looked at what was wrong. I'd spent 10 years studying what was wrong, my eating disorders, my depression, my anxiety. And when I started to understand this, I was like, no wonder I was feeling worse and worse, because I spent all my time in what was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Now, I just want to see if we've got any questions, because we haven't had any so far. But just before we finish, if anybody has got a question, you're either welcome to type it in the chat box or kind of unmute yourself and ask. But we might not have any, which is all good. I think we're just kind of resting in a really beautiful feeling anyway. So that's kind of a nice place to end, unless you guys have anything else that you want to kind of add.
There was one little story I wanted to tell. And I've mentioned this a few times, but for anybody who hasn't heard it, it was Jen and I once went to a soup kitchen in South Africa, and there was 300 homeless people in this place. And during this time, a man walked in. He was a big man. He was built like a brick shithouse, and he had beaten up face and carrying his bags. And I saw him. I was like, "What's happened to your face, man?" He was like, "I was beaten." And I was like, "Wow, what happened?" He said, "Well, I was in the park. Four men came and they beat my face and they took my things." I just remember saying to him, I stood in the middle of this room full of different gang members, kind of just simmering. Some people looking like really on edge, other people playing games and singing and doing all kinds of things. And I said, "That must have been terrifying, fella." And he just looked down at me and went, "Scared? You'd be scared?" And I looked up at him and I was like, "Yeah, I think so." I said, "I think if 4 men came and beat me and took my things, yeah, I think I might be a bit scared." And he just looked back down at me and said, "I will never be afraid of my brothers. The only person I need to be afraid of in here is you." And pointed at little me compared to him. He was bloody enormous. And I crapped myself. I was like, "Oh, please don't kick off. Please don't kick off." And I said, the only thing that came out of my mouth at this time was, why? What have I done? And he just went, you white man, you suppress me, you suppress us, you suppress me. I was just like, so, wow, I was not expecting this conversation now. And I was just a bit taken aback. And then I just remember saying to this man, it's not a prescription, certainly not, but this is just the conversation that followed was, I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I don't understand what you mean. I said, this suppression, can you please show it to me? I can't see it. He said, what do you mean, can I show it to you? I said, please, can you show it to me? Because I truly cannot see it. I'm struggling. I don't understand what you're talking about. And I want to understand. Can you show it to me, please? He said, how can I show it to you? I said, oh, you're going to have to touch it, point to it, touch it. And he started getting flustered. And we started to have a conversation about this kind of thing, about the nature of reality and how we all live in a reality that is unique, that is completely unique to our being in any given moment. How no two people on earth are seeing the same world. And how all experience is created from within. All experience cannot be created externally. Experience is always a state of consciousness. It's always a state of consciousness that thinks. And I can't even remember the conversation, but I do remember after about 20 minutes, this man bursting into tears. And he fell back into this chair, which thankfully there was nobody sat in at the time. And I sat down in front of him and he just looked at me and went, you've set me free. You've set me free. Your wisdom has set me free. And I said, no, I haven't. You've set you free. You've done it. And as we left, this man, as everybody left, this man was the last person to leave. He gave me the biggest hug. Oh. He was like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I fell in love with that man deeply. I love that man. I have no idea where he's at. I hold a special place in my heart for that man. That was a belief that kind of separated South Africa. That mentality separates South Africa. And when we left, our friend said to us, she said, she was looking around, she was going, look at all these people. She said, the problem's too big. The problem in South Africa's too big. And Jenny and I looked at her and went, no, it's not. The problem South Africa faces isn't too big. It's not big at all. I said, yeah, it looks big if you think you need financial equality, housing equality, job equalities. You know, you need black people living next to white people on the same street. You know, if you think in the world of form, yeah, that looks like a massive undertaking with an awful lot of financial commitment. I said, but all South Africa needs to do is change its mind about one another. And when people start to think about each other differently, they'll start to see they're all the same. And when we start to see we're all the same, we will start to find equality. South Africa will thrive. The only thing that stands in the way of any relationship isn't the world, isn't circumstance, it's thought, belief. And I remember it being one of those moments where Jen and I have now been asked to go and speak out in the Congo, getting together tribal leaders and religious leaders together to have a conversation about what is the same about us. What is it that unifies as opposed to separates? What is it that separates? Truly, what is it that separates? The only illusion of separation is created within our mind.
Yeah.
And so it's like you start to see that when people see this, the world will change. The world has to change because it will wake up.
Yeah.
As our good friend Gordell said, he said, there will be no place for war. There will be no place for hatred. He said, because everybody will realize they are the same.
Yeah.
And that's what this understanding has to offer. Complete and utter global change.
Yeah. Just by realizing that we all think differently.
By waking up to what we are.
Yeah.
And realizing what we're not.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for that story. If people want to hear more from you, where can they find out about you?
So www.freedomthinking.co.uk.
Yeah.
And our email address is just info@freedomthinking.co.uk.
Perfect. And I'll pop that in the information.
We have Freedom Thinking.
Freedom Thinking on Facebook.
I'm personally not on Facebook, but
yeah.
Jenny's on Facebook, and we have Freedom Thinking Facebook page.
Lovely. Well, I'll post all that information in the group as well, because we've got the member vault area where people will probably be watching this on replay. So yeah, thank you guys. That was really, really lovely, and yeah, there's so much in that. So I think people will really enjoy listening back. We've got some people beautifully put, as always. Thank you for sharing. Look forward to catching up again soon. That's from Pete. So
I don't know which Peter it is. It's just a black box with Peter. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks for joining us, you two.
Yeah, no, and there will be people watching this on replay. There's quite a lot of people watching on replay, so it's definitely going to help a lot of people. So that's great. Next week, for those who are going to be listening, I'm not here. I'm off on holiday. So we've got 1 week off, and then we're back on Friday the 7th of February, same time, with Shani and Alexandra, who are Hay House authors of Wild Power. So they're here to explore our feminine wisdom and the power of the female cycle, although men are invited too, because it's always interesting. So these two ladies are really special, and it's going to be an amazing session for anybody who is suffering with the female menstrual cycle, wanting to live their truest wild purpose, and anyone interested in creativity. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. If there are any questions following this, then do just drop me an email or a message, and I'll be happy to explore them a little bit further. And that's all. But thank you guys. It was amazing to have you, and yeah, it was a conversation that I didn't really know what to expect of. So yeah, loads of little stories kind of interwoven into that, and yeah, I loved it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. Thanks for thinking of us, love.
That's all right. Thank you. And nice to see Rusty again as well.
Yeah.
Bobby, thanks so much. I'm purring.
What a lad that creature is, I swear to God.